죽는다고 했지?
이러지 마. 내가 먼저 갈게.
너 그거 알아? 넌 족도 졸라 작아.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rantin Review Entertainment. We are finally talking about something that probably everybody else has already talked about ad nauseum, but it is Squid Games, which was one of the biggest shows of the year, probably in the history of Netflix. Came out back around October, September time. I finally got around to watching it and checking out the show, and I can say that there's a lot of good and a little bit not so good with this show from Netflix from out of South Korea. But before we get into any of that, I want to remind you guys, this being YouTube, that you can help out the channel by hitting the like button, and while you're down there, you might as well hit the notification bell and the subscribe button, and let other people know that this video exists. So people who have an interest in this kind of topic, in particular looking a little bit deeper into one of everybody's favorite TV shows right now, they can find this video. So I appreciate it very much in advance, and let's get on to the review and the analysis. So overall, I'm not going to go plot point by plot point with what Squid Games was. You've probably heard it already, and you've probably already seen the show. But Squid Game essentially is a show from South Korea, which is highlighting people who are in massive amounts of debt. They get into debt. The main character is a gambler. We've got another character who's a thief. We've got another character who's a gangster. And essentially what all these people have in common is they don't have a little bit of debt. They have massive amounts of debt. Song Jin-hoon is our main protagonist character, and he's not the greatest father in the world. He's not the greatest husband in the world, as he's divorced. His wife has moved on with a new man. They're going to be leaving for America pretty soon, and his mother tells him, he's like, look, your daughter's going to move to America. She's going to go to that terrible, horrible place and forget how to speak Korean, and you won't be able to write with her anymore. You got to do something. So he goes out after stealing some money from her earlier. I mean, this guy's not really a good dude at the beginning of the show. But he meets this guy in a subway station after running into his loan sharks and getting beat up from them and signing his life away or whatever, his kidneys or organs or whatever. And he plays this game where he's got to slap an envelope on top of another envelope, and if he can't get it to flip, the other guy gets to slap him. So the other guy starts slapping him around because obviously he can't pay off the money that, I think it was 10,000 won, which is about, I guess, like $100 or I don't know what the conversion is. But it's not that much money, but it's enough money that he wanted it. And with that money, he could go off and buy his daughter a birthday present because it was his daughter's birthday. He loses over and over again and gets slapped over and over again until he finally wins and goes to slap the guy, and he goes, oh yeah, the money. So this guy gives him a little card with some PlayStation characters on it and says, hey, you can participate in other games like this. Now, what they don't tell Gi-hoon and pretty much anybody else, the other 455 people who are participating in this game, is that they're gonna play 6 games, which are basically kids games famous in South Korea. But if you don't win or you fail at these games, you're gonna die, which wasn't in the original thing that they told these people. There's a bunch of different twists and turns in this. There's this big pot of money that's ironically, not ironically, obviously intentionally in a big fat pig, translucent pig. They keep dumping money into it after every time somebody plays a game or after somebody dies, because the more people you eliminate, the bigger the pot gets. So they want the pot to get as big as possible. There's a bunch of different main characters in here. We have the old man at the beginning, who was my favorite character because he looked like he was having the time of his life. The guy's got a brain tumor though, so, you know, hey, he's got to play in. But there are things you notice about the show after watching it upon second viewing that you're going to notice that certain people don't say certain things. He would be one of them. Cho Sang-woo is a childhood friend of Gi-hoon, and we find out that he was, you know, one of these accelerated advanced people. He was very good in school, but he got into the stock market and traded in futures. You guys should know better about that. If you watch my Wrestling with Finance channel, you know that's some shaky stuff. He gets himself in trouble. Not only himself, but his mother's shop is now on the line and the cops are looking for him. So he's in trouble. We've got a bunch of other different characters in here. The gangster character, he's got a gambling debt or something that he got in trouble with another gang, so they're looking for his head. And then there's this crazy woman who is absolutely wonderful in the most insane way possible, who develops a bit of a love interest with her gangster, and that pays off in a very interesting way in one of the games later on. But again, we got this great ensemble cast of main characters, and then everybody else who's in this game. And there's so many good little aha moments or, ooh, I didn't see that coming moments in this show. Some of them you could see coming, some of them you couldn't. And upon second viewing, this is one of those shows that you're gonna wanna watch twice, because the second time you watch, you're gonna go, oh, they put that in episode 1 and then they come around into episode 5 and I didn't notice it, that kind of thing. Overall, I absolutely love this show, but one of the big problem, well, there's two big problems with the show. One of the things I liked about the show as I was going through the first 7 or 8 episodes was that there was some subtext, some social commentary in it, but they weren't really beating you over the head with it. It was a lot of just visual imagery and just a situation that you could kind of derive for yourself. But when they got to the last episode, then they kind of started really beating you over the head with, this is the political, social stance that we're taking on this. So it's a commentary essentially on capitalism, which is now in South Korea. And despite the fact that it's lifted South Korea, which at one point in time was one of the worst economic countries in the world, it's lifted them up. There are still people who are disadvantaged. South Korea does have a high suicide rate because of the competitiveness. And people still aren't guaranteed jobs even if you excel at school, which was illustrated by one of the characters in the show. This also dovetails into the other thing I didn't like about the show, which was a big mistake, which was the VIPs. The VIPs were, except for one character, were these generic, you know, stereotypical, one-dimensional, rich, white, old American men who were the VIPs who were kind of funding this thing, and they were betting on the people as if they were betting on sports racing, which then again, once they got to that point, it kind of is like, oh yes, because earlier on, the main character, he was betting on horses and doing all this gambling, and this is just a higher level of what he was doing. So there's a little bit of that in there. There are some ironies about the political social stance in this show, and we are going to get into a little bit of spoilers here, so if you don't want any spoilers, pause this, watch Squid Games, and come back to it. But there are certain instances, like the VIPs, where the VIPs are dirty, greedy people betting on things, but they're just doing it at a higher level than the main characters who we're supposed to sympathize and empathize with. But remember, our main characters are, one's a thief, one's a person who gambles on horses and all this stuff, and he's just very flippant with money. Another guy is a gangster. Another guy is an insider trader who deceived and screwed up the people at his business and his mother. So none of those people are really good people either. And if they had the money and were in the position of the VIP people, you kind of get the sense that they probably would have done the same thing that the people who are in the Squid Game, or whatever the games are actually called, were doing. So it's kind of like this moral gray area, which I kind of like, but it kind of counteracts some of what people are trying to say, that the show is a completely anti-capitalist show. When you get stuff like this in the show, the P word starts coming around. I don't mean papaya. I mean propaganda and preaching. Those are the P words I'm talking about. It did feel a little preachy as we got to the final episode, especially what happens in the final episode seemed a little bit too on the nose for me. Some of the stuff I think would have worked better if they hadn't flat out come out and said it. In fact, at one point, another character makes the comparison to Ji-hoon about him earlier betting on horses and the VIPs betting on him and the other participants. We also have a lot of other stuff that's just very on the nose. There are a lot of twists and turns in it though, but should you take the social political stuff as gospel? Some people will, because it says what they want to hear. Other people will cringe at it and go, oh, this is just a bunch of propaganda. I think if you keep in mind that this is fiction, this is not, you know, something to go, aha, that is the way it is in the world. This is an artist interpretation where they write a scenario in which their worldview will be validated. So you have to keep that in mind, that not to take this stuff too seriously and don't read too much into it. Yes, there is a heavy political, social message in here, but don't let that ruin or let you overhype how good Squid Game is. Squid Game has there are some plot holes here and there. There are some issues. Again, I don't want to spoil too much of it, so I'm not going to mention them right now. But overall, I think the plot twist, the design of the games, the film is beautifully shot. The acting, even though this is show, I watched the dubbed version, even though with the dubbed version, even with the subtitles, the acting is fantastic. There are some really funny moments, some really just cringe, hold your breath moments, and some really heartbreaking moments. At one point, one of our main characters has to deceive another beloved character in the show, and we know that they're deceiving him, but we also understand he's deceiving this other character because if he doesn't, he's gonna die, and it's just really gut-wrenching. There's a lot of that stuff in this show, which is why it's a really, really good watch. So I absolutely suggest you watching Squid Game. Apparently they're setting up for a sequel season, a second season of it, so this is gonna go on for a while. This is a new hit for Netflix. It's a second South Korean cinema hit, which is bringing a lot of that into, and again, we're getting into a global world with the streaming services now and all these internet accessibility. Unless you're in North Korea, where you probably would get a life sentence if you try to bring Squid Game into North Korea on DVD. That seems like a bigger problem, but because that's real life. But it's a great show. It filled the void that I felt, you know, given the fact that it seems to be unlikely that we're going to get another season of Black Mirror. This kind of filled that Black Mirror itch for me with these kind of quirky, weird, dangerous, slightly horror, social commentary shows. So I definitely enjoyed it, and I do suggest you guys checking it out if that's your kind of thing. But let me know what you guys thought. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. And until next time, I will see you guys here for more news, rumors, and reviews here on the Rantin Review Entertainment. Have a good day.